Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Our webinar today is ITIL plus KCS equals success. We're very happy to have you all join. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from. My name is Jenny Hepler. I'm a ComAround Customer Success Manager in North America, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. Our speaker today is knowledge management expert Rick Joslin. Rick has over 30 years of experience in IT service management and 20 years in knowledge management. He's a member of the first class of KCS certified instructors and holds KCS certifications from both the KCS Academy and HDI. He has been a contributing author to the KCS Practices Guide and to ITIL v3. Rick has been actively promoting and speaking about KCS for 15 years. He speaks at various events and has promoted KCS at industry conferences on 6 different continents. He's also served as a judge for industry awards, including the HDI KCS Award, which he championed and developed. It's our pleasure to have such an expert with us today. So welcome, Rick. Before we begin, I just want to share a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be available later on the ComAround website. The lines have all been muted to minimize disruption and any background noise. Your questions are of course welcomed. They will be addressed following the presentation. So if you have a question, please submit it through the chat option at any time during the presentation, and I will be monitoring the questions. Today's webinar is being sponsored by Cherwell and ComAround. Following Rick's presentation and before the Q&A session, Cherwell and ComAround will be sharing a short message and showing ITIL plus KCS in action. Joining us today from Cherwell is Matt Peeples, Vice President of Technical Alliances, and from ComAround, please welcome Bill Pollie, Executive Vice President of America Sales and Strategic Alliances. So welcome, gentlemen, and we all look forward to hearing from you. So at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Rick. So Rick, it's all yours.
Okay, at this point, we're trying the process of opening the presentation. Show my screen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone in whatever time zone you find yourself today. Over the next 35 to 45 minutes, I'm going to share with you some thoughts about how the right service management strategy combines the best practices from ITIL and KCS to produce success. I want to first acknowledge that ITIL is owned by Aclos and is a service management best practices framework. And KCS, also known as Knowledge-Centered Service, is owned by the Consortium for Service Innovation and is a knowledge management best practices methodology for service management. They are better together. Today we'll be exploring some of the synergies between these best practices and why it's essential that knowledge become a cornerstone for your service management strategy. Doing more with less. Now, you've heard this phrase and many of us live it. Each year, service desks are asked to satisfy higher demands without rapidly expanding their organizations. I've met very few service desk managers that claim to have enough people to exceed their service level targets while managing all the projects and operational tasks on their plate. They're being asked to do more with less. This is a common challenge. While demand is increasing and issues are more complex, Our budgets are limited, and so are the people resources. So how do you satisfy your customers, your employees, and the needs of your organization? You begin by learning from the experiences of others. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the people, process, and technology framework. This has been around since the introduction of technology. You have most likely heard industry guidance that states, start by defining the processes, then select the technology to enable the processes. Well, I want to challenge this framework. I think it's time to evolve it. Some management experts have referred to the people, process, and technology approach as the three legs of the stool. All three legs must be addressed in your strategy, and a weakness in any leg can cause your strategy to fail. You know, prior to technology, the management methods focused on people and process. It was process that made the Industrial Revolution successful, and people followed the process. When technology was introduced, strategies were updated to reflect how technology enabled the processes to be more efficient and effective. I believe the time has come for this approach to evolve once again. We need to replace the three-legged stool with the sturdier four-legged chair. It is time to recognize knowledge as a requirement in the framework. Knowledge management is a relatively young process within service management. Today, it is recognized as a requirement within the service management strategy. You know, each year, HCI, the Technical Support Professionals Association, surveys the industry and reports on the practices and salaries in this space. You know, I reviewed the 1998 report from my files, and I found that the knowledge management was not even talked about back then. That's just 20 years ago. Looking at other past reports, I learned that for the past 10 years, knowledge management has been consistently ranked in the top 4 must-have technologies. It was ranked number 2 behind incident management in 2015 and floats between 2nd, 3rd, and 4th position each year. The most recent report still recognizes knowledge management as in the top 4. Most interesting, though, is that 41% of respondents plan to add or improve knowledge management. That ranked it 2nd behind self-help. And since self-help requires knowledge, it is safe to say that more than half the industry is planning to add or improve knowledge management in 2018. Knowledge management is a requirement. I suspect that you are listening today because you too believe knowledge is critical to your strategy. Allow me to take a moment and look back at early help desks. It's important for us to realize that what we did yesterday is not good enough for today, and therefore what we're doing today will not be good enough for tomorrow. Service management practices continue to evolve, and our strategies must evolve with them. When the first help desks were created, the goal was to stop interrupting the developers. Most of the software used within an organization was mainframe applications written by in-house developers. And when there were questions or issues, the developers were the people with the answers. When the developers were disrupted by these questions, though, they were not developing. To minimize the disruption of these highly paid and skilled developers, someone was hired to answer the phones. The people hired were low-cost, unskilled labor. We called them the help desk. They followed a simple paper-based process. Answer the phone. We did not spend a lot of thought about how to answer. It was just important to answer it. Answer the question if they could, but most of the time they would record the question. Now, how many of you recall the old "while you were out" tablets? You know, I was a software developer in the 1980s for a company called Westinghouse Electric. And after a major release of a new application, these papers began to show up on my desk. The help desk job was to route the request to the right person. They initially routed the paper to us. Later, this was replaced with an email or a voicemail message. As a developer, we would then call the person back when we had time. Now, often this was right after lunch or just before we left for the day. Or we would give the answer to the help desk and let them call the customer back. Admittedly, as a developer, we wanted to help, but customer service was not high on our priorities. It was not unusual for these pieces of paper to get lost, and this is why technology was introduced. In addition to phone systems, a ticketing database was created. The first ticketing systems we used were PC-based applications. They were often written in R-base or D-base. Who can recall them? Perhaps you can remember these blue and gray screen designs. The purpose was to record the work that required follow-up. We did not log every call. There was no reason to do so. We logged only the calls that were outstanding, so we did not forget them. There were no priorities to manage them, and rarely did we record how we resolved it. The work was done. Why would we waste our time recording how we resolved the issue? Yet over time, the industry began to develop best practices and justifiable reasons for logging every call. It was through the shared experience of others that we evolved service management. Today, support organizations hire skilled and certified staff. Hiring managers value candidates that have the appropriate certifications. Some organizations now require their staff to earn specific certifications before they can be promoted, receive a performance increase, or to even complete a new hire probationary period. The common certification include technical skills, process knowledge, and customer service skills. Agents have to be good at serving customers and at problem solving. Your service management strategies must define the processes that people will follow to deliver the most effective and efficient services. There are several frameworks and methodologies that provide best practices that have been proven to deliver positive results. The most widely adopted framework worldwide is unarguably ITIL. In the HTI 2017 Technical Practices and Salary Report, we find that 72% of organizations currently use or plan to use ITIL in their strategy, followed by Knowledge-Centered Service, or KCS. In fact, 60% of respondents reported that they are currently using or plan to implement KCS. The right strategy is rarely based on only one framework. You learn about the experience of others from multiple sources and develop the strategy that fits your organization. Once you define your strategy and your desired processes, then it's time to select the right technology to enable them. Service management suites today provide a foundation for a broad scope of service management. Yet no one tool best solves every need. You are likely to require multiple solution providers. Integrated systems provide the strongest foundation for success when compared to a collection of disconnected applications. It's integration that provides additional value and ease of use to support staff. The ease of use reduces the barriers to adoption. Whatever technologies you select, they need to work together. The people, process, and technology framework today requires us to hire the best people, learn from the best practices, and define our service management strategy and processes to enable the processes that are with the right technology. For many years, this has been the approach. The critical success factor was having and retaining the right staff. We trusted the people to provide the answers and resolutions. As a support organization, we became dependent on the knowledge and experiences of our staff. The support model, while process-driven, was heavily labor-based. Workforce management was introduced to make sure we had the right people available at the right times. Unfortunately, people take time off, they get sick, retire, or resign. And when they leave, the knowledge they have leaves with them. Thus, the introduction of knowledge management. While knowledge management has been around, the knowledge base was initially positioned as an optional resource. The knowledge base was a digital repository to replace the many binders and folders that people had sitting on their desks in the filing cabinets next to them. It was not the first place support professionals looked for answers. In 1992, the Consortium for Service Innovation was created. Initially, it was a nonprofit alliance of service management executives from software and hardware vendors. They were exploring how to improve technical support for their customers. One of the early initiatives focused on knowledge management. Through their shared experiences, a methodology known as Knowledge-Centered Service, or KCS, was developed. Just 15 years ago, HDI partnered with the consortium to share the methodology with the industry in the form of classroom training. Prior to that, KCS was primarily shared with the consortium members. Now it's published for everyone in the industry to learn about and use. While it's been around since the 1980s, knowledge was not a term in the early books. Knowledge management was introduced into the framework in 2007 with the release of ITIL version 3. This helped promote the need for organizations to develop knowledge management processes. That same year, the first KCS certifications became available. The industry has been evolving, and people are learning from the experiences of others. Recognizing the tremendous value of KCS, the consortium introduced the KCS Academy in 2010 to provide resources, training, and certifications. And I encourage you to visit their website and review the free practices guide. The message is that KCS and these knowledge management best practices are still relatively new in our industry compared to service management. And as such, not every organization has adopted KCS. But clearly, the trend shows that KCS adoption is rising. Before knowledge, support was inefficient and at times ineffective. If an agent did not know an answer, they would likely turn to their peers for help. This increased the cost of support as multiple resources are engaged to provide the answer. Lacking fast access to knowledge, it took more time to investigate, diagnose, resolve, and document tickets. And because it is common for service desks to receive the same issue multiple times, different people were spending time to solve issues already solved. And they often provided different answers to the same question. When tickets could not be resolved quickly, tickets were routinely escalated to more costly support partners. The time to resolve a ticket took longer, and customers were not happy. These were common practices in most service desks before the introduction of knowledge. When knowledge was first introduced into service management, the focus was improving the service desk. Management were looking for a tactic to reduce escalations and improve first contact resolution. Ultimately, it was about improving first level resolution and taking the helpless out of the helpless desk. Then someone had the idea of sharing knowledge with customers. The initial approach was to publish the frequently asked questions. The goal was to reduce the call volume related to these frequently asked questions. Now, the problem with this tactic was that customers didn't know if their question was frequent or not. So when they looked for an answer, they rarely found it. And then they stopped looking and kept calling. The self-service knowledge base needs to have broad content for customers to be successfully using it. Early knowledge management methods followed a knowledge engineering workflow. Ideas for knowledge articles were submitted to a dedicated knowledge team. The knowledge engineers would then develop, test, and verify the knowledge articles was correct. Sometimes they had to engage subject matter experts to review the articles for correctness or just to learn the correct resolution. But once the article was ready, it would be published to the service desk. One problem was the knowledge base was still an optional resource for the support team. Even if knowledge was available, were agents using it? The second problem related to how long it might take for that submitted knowledge article to make it through the process and get published. Now, I've had people and clients tell me it could take weeks. In most support environments, there is a general rule of thumb that 80% of all incidents generated by about 20% of all problems. In these 80% is where knowledge management can have the big impact, if it's available. When a change is made in an environment, such as a product release, we can predict that the service desk will see an increase in incidents for a period of time. Now, this is generally 30 to 60 days. The impact trend is known as the support demand curve. Demand grows initially and then begins to decline over time. Let's look at the impact of knowledge engineering has on the support demand curve. When the first incident is reported, it's an unknown issue. It's never been reported before, and therefore there's no knowledge in the knowledge base for an agent to find. The agent must do work to resolve it. They are then expected to capture the knowledge and report it to the knowledge engineering team. The new knowledge is submitted to a queue. When the next incident is reported, another agent receives the call. They look in the knowledge base and there's nothing there. As a result, they see this as a new issue and they investigate it. Once the incident is resolved, they submit the knowledge article to the knowledge engineering queue. Not only is the agent performing redundant work, they're submitting redundant ideas to knowledge engineers. The queue keeps growing, and this repeats with each new incident until the knowledge is published. Once it's published, then agents can find the knowledge articles to help customers. Unfortunately, the peak period where this is needed may have passed. The biggest benefit of having knowledge was missed. Consider this from a business viewpoint. The knowledge engineering process is an investment that the organization is making. The return on knowledge is when it's reused. The reuse of knowledge occurs after it's published. So what's happening while the knowledge is in the queue? I refer to this as rework. While this is a known issue to the organization, the agent assumes that it's new and must do work to resolve it. The rework is an additional cost to the organization. Because this model has a delay in publishing new knowledge, the organization is working inefficiently, and the return on investment for knowledge is low. But there is a better way. Now let's look at the same scenario following the knowledge-centered service methodology. After the first incident is reported, the agent contributes the new knowledge directly to the knowledge base for reuse by other agents. This makes the known issue visible so that other agents do not do rework. However, the knowledge has not been validated or verified, so the trust level is low. So we mark this knowledge as draft. It is a single shared experience. As additional agents interact with the knowledge, they're responsible for ensuring that the resolution is correct before providing it to the customer. When viewing the knowledge article, the agents can see that it's only been used once and who contributed it. They have to use their judgment, just as if they asked the author a question. They have to make sure the answer is right for the customer. If they identify any errors or omissions in the knowledge, they're responsible to correct it before giving it to the customer. They're also responsible for correcting it in the knowledge base. No one can say there is garbage in the knowledge base without admitting they saw it and they left it there. In this methodology, we are letting customer demand drive the need to review knowledge just in time instead of a just-in-case model of the knowledge engineering mate. This eliminates the cost of improving knowledge articles that are never used. And most importantly, we have eliminated the rework for resolving the same issue. Agents are able to use the knowledge base as a means of sharing their experiences and a means to collaborate on improving the knowledge they use. Once there is evidence of demand, perhaps 3 or 4 reuses of the same knowledge, you can elect to submit the knowledge to a compliance process for review. Since we're allowing the demand to derive the items that are sent to compliance process, only those issues that are repeatable are receiving the additional investment. This means that 80% of the articles are not being reviewed because the demand is not there, and therefore the return will not be there as well. We've just reduced the workload in the compliance process by 80%. We've also removed the redundancy from this compliance queue and provided additional savings. Furthermore, the validation of the resolution will have already been completed by the 3 or 4 agents that reused the article before it was sent to the compliance process. You already know that it's being used to satisfy customers through assisted service. Not every organization has a compliance requirement. You can publish knowledge directly as self-service without such a review. But in some organizations and industries, there are governance and regulatory requirements that require that knowledge articles be reviewed before they can be shared publicly. Once the knowledge goes through the compliance process, the knowledge is noted as trusted. It can now be shared with customers through self-service. By following the KCS methodology, rework and redundancy is minimized. Knowledge is captured and improved as a byproduct of incident management. Agents creating knowledge for customers are capturing it for reuse. If compliance is required, the investment in knowledge is minimized, and you only invest in the articles where there is evidence of demand. You move from a just-in-case model to a just-in-time model. Your return on investment is higher. In fact, the return begins on the first reuse of the knowledge article. Now, which method has a stronger business case in your mind? Knowledge engineering or KCS? So how does this work? How do we integrate KCS into the ITIL incident management process? Well, here is a simplistic view of the process showing the integration of the use it, flag it, fix it, and add it steps, or UFA as some like to refer to it. When an incident occurs, the agent creates the ticket. Their next step is to seek to understand if this is a known issue to the organization by searching the knowledge base. Now, most organizations receive a high percentage of issues that are known versus new. That is, the organization has solved the issue before. And let's use the 80-20 rule for our example. 80% of incidents received are known and therefore can be found in the knowledge base. The next step, though, is to determine if the article is correct, where the agent uses their judgment. 90+% of the time, this will be the case. So we'll use the article to close the case. Using the article means more than linking the article to the ticket. It also means the ticket is updated with information from the knowledge article, such as the resolution and correct classification. This reduces the documentation efforts of the agent, saving them time, and improves incident data. Because agents can find known issues quickly, first contact resolution rates increase, and the mean time to resolve decreases. Now, if the article was incorrect, then the agent's responsible to flag it or fix it, depending on their authority. Agents are responsible to improve knowledge articles before they use it to close the incident. This keeps the knowledge current for the next person who needs it. If an article is not found, then we assume the issue is new, and we begin to diagnose and investigate it further until we solve it. You may research it or escalate the ticket to others for assistance. But ultimately, the issue gets resolved. You've just created new knowledge, and the issue is now known to the organization. The next step is to add it to the knowledge base and use it to close the incident. This process integrates the KCS knowledge management steps into the incident management process. Knowledge is used, improved, and captured as a byproduct of helping customers. Knowledge improves incident management, request management, access management, and event management. If your focus is on assisted service, then knowledge is required to improve how the organization manages these tickets. First contact resolution increases as agents reuse knowledge. The mean time to resolve decreases as agents have fast access to knowledge. Escalation costs are reduced as more incidents are resolved by the service desk. And because agents are using the same knowledge, they provide customers with consistent answers. This leads to increased customer satisfaction, for customers want fast access to correct information. It leads to increased employee satisfaction, as employees have the ability to satisfy more customers. And it leads to reduced costs per incident. It takes less time and resources per ticket. While many people see knowledge as something that is integrated into the support processes used by the service desk, knowledge must be integrated into other ITIL processes. Let us spend a few minutes exploring how knowledge management can help share standard operating procedures that support your operational level agreements, detect and identify problems that can lead to incident elimination. Problem management shares root causes and fixes, and uses business impact to justify change requests. You can monitor implemented changes to determine the success or failure. Support an agile environment where software is released every few weeks. Share knowledge and improve relationships between dev and ops. And share knowledge with customers. What should you put in your knowledge base? Well, if you ask a question or are presented with an answer, then it belongs in the knowledge base. The initial focus for populating knowledge base usually is to consider the questions and issues from the customer's perspective. But what about the questions from your support staff? They belong in the knowledge base as well. Your standard operating procedures are in response to staff's needs. SOPs define what agents are expected to do when something happens. In service level management, organizations define SOPs for escalating tickets to support partners. For each support partner, you define the type of issues they will support, what the agents are expected to do prior to escalating a ticket, such as triage and data collection, how to escalate the ticket and to whom, as well as what expectations to set with the customer and what the service desk should expect from the support partner. These SOPs should be captured and maintained as knowledge articles. When an agent searches for an answer to a question, they should be able to find the right procedures for getting help when an answer cannot be found in the knowledge base. This is one example of how service level management integrates with knowledge. Your operational level agreements should also contain information related to support partners' roles and responsibilities for sharing knowledge. They need to share their knowledge with the service desk so that the service desk can share their knowledge with customers. Knowledge reuse is defined as knowledge being used to resolve a ticket, and a link is made between the knowledge article and the ticket. The reuse counter indicates the number of tickets linked to the knowledge article. Reuse is knowledge about the knowledge article and provides tremendous value. First, it builds trust in the knowledge. If the search results show two possible answers to your question, one with showing a reuse of 10 and the other a reuse of 1,000, which are you likely to review first? Now, most will say the one with the highest reuse, as it implies it was the right solution most of the time. Reuse drives a shift left strategy. As reuse increases, it identifies the need to move the ability to answer the question closer to the point of demand, the customer. If the resolution requires level 2 to be engaged, reuse justifies the need to move the ability to level 1. If the resolution requires level 1, well, what can be done to enable self-service? And if it's available through self-service, then why is level 1 receiving the call? What can be done to improve self-service or even enable self-detection or self-healing? Reuse is used to detect problems. Reuse measures the patterns of repeat incidents by linking incident tickets to a common knowledge article. The knowledge article documents the known issue and the current workaround. High reuse can identify the need for problem management to investigate the root cause and eliminate the issue. The knowledge article is used to create the problem record, and the two are linked. The incidents linked to the knowledge article provides data for root cause analysis. Because the problem is linked to the knowledge article, the problem management professional can quickly gain access to all of the incidents related to the problem. They are already linked to the knowledge article. And as new incidents occur, they also are linked to the knowledge article. When problem management discovers the root cause, an improved workaround, or a fix, then they need to update the knowledge articles to share this information. The volume of reuse can be used to calculate the business impact and help justify a change request. You no longer have to say, this issue is reported a lot. Now you have the data that says exactly how often an incident occurs, who's affected, and the impact on the business. And reuse after the release of a change can indicate a failed change. After a change request is approved and released to production, change management has the responsibility to monitor the success or failure of the change. If successful, you expect incidents to be eliminated. If there are knowledge reuse after the release, then something went wrong. Knowledge management should be integrated with problem and change management. The transition of new and improved services from development to operation is improved with knowledge sharing. In testing and validation, the quality assurance team identifies issues and develops answers to questions. Now, I don't mean to shock you, but products are released with known issues. Development does not fix everything before a release. If the service is to be released with known issues, knowledge articles about those issues can minimize risk and the impact of the change on the service desk and customers. As a part of the release and deployment process, proactive knowledge can be shared with the service desk and customers. This may be knowledge about how to use new features or updates to existing knowledge where features and functionality was altered within the release. Organizations that follow an agile process can leverage the sprint stories as input to knowledge articles. While some knowledge is more made available proactively with a release, an organization following the KCS methodology is able to rapidly respond by capturing knowledge in the incident management process. Knowledge sharing will improve the relationship between dev and ops. Organizations implementing DevOps benefits from the integration of ITIL and KCS. Knowledge is the product of the support organization. Customers in need of knowledge may contact the service desk by phone, email, chat, or some other contact method. It's the agent's responsibility to provide the right knowledge fast. Customers may also access knowledge through self-service. Self-service can come in different forms as well. Customers could search a knowledge base. They could receive an automated email response with possible answers or interact with a bot. When you provide self-service, you also need to provide a transition to assisted service for questions that are not found in your knowledge base. Analyzing self-service usage can identify knowledge gaps that need to be filled to improve self-service success. It's important to recognize that knowledge is the asset of the organization that is delivered to customers when they need it. Once you recognize knowledge as the asset or product of your organization, you can define the quality requirements for knowledge, and you can measure the value of knowledge. Previously, I shared some benefits of knowledge when integrated with incident management. But knowledge provides much more value beyond tickets. Providing self-service enables customer choice. Some customers prefer self-service over engaging the service desk. You know, self-service is no longer an option in our culture. Customers expect it. You need and must provide it. Self-service success reduces assisted service volume. This shifts left the simple and frequent issues from the service desk to the customer. Use knowledge to detect and identify problems. This can lead to improved services and fewer incidents. Fewer calls and the elimination of problems results in the support organization having additional capacity. Who doesn't have a backlog of projects or tasks that need addressed if you only had the resources? Ultimately, these benefits lead to increased customer satisfaction, increased employee satisfaction, and reduced cost per incident. KCS is the source of knowledge management best practices for service management. I invite you again to learn more about KCS from the many free resources published by the KCS Academy and other vendors. Learn from the experience of innovators like Microsoft, Oracle, Dell, and HP. Learn from the experience of adopters like Ellie Mae, Tico Energy, Lowe's, PepsiCo, and Allstate. Knowledge is a critical component of your strategy. Learn from the best practices and create a knowledge-sharing culture based on KCS. You know, it's important to hire the right people. People create, improve, and deliver knowledge. Adopt processes based on ITIL and KCS. Processes provide repeated efficiency and effectiveness. Enable the processes with the right technology. Technology provides speed and ease of use, reducing the barriers for adoption. And capture, share, and improve knowledge as an asset of the organization. Knowledge is your product, and it must be combined with the people, process, and technology to create a successful service management strategy. Now, I've been sharing with you the what and the why. Now, I'm going to pass the microphone on to my colleagues, and they can share a little more with you on the how. But please continue to submit your questions via the chat window. We will address as many as we can before time runs out. At this point, I will pass the presentation to my colleagues.
I want to thank Rick. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'd like to, at this point, introduce a colleague of mine. My name is Pollie. It's a pleasure to have all of you on today's session. I'd like at this stage to introduce a colleague of mine, Matt Peeples, Vice President of Strategic Alliances for Cherwell. who is one of the co-sponsors for today's presentation and a very strong partner of the folks here at ComAround. So Matt, maybe you can walk through a couple of slides here to tell folks on the phone a little bit more about Cherwell, and just give me a heads up when you're ready to move to the next slide.
Thank you, Bill, and look forward to taking a few minutes and talking about Cherwell. And Rick, just great job on your presentation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very beneficial and educational. I'm sure that everyone listening gained some extreme value from that. So in 3 slides, it's hard to give you a deep dive overview of Cherwell, but I think the things that are most important, especially what relates to today's conversation, will help you work through this. This opening slide, why Cherwell? I love the first bullet point because it is the essence of who we are at Cherwell. I could spend an hour talking about features and functions and ITIL this and everything, but the choice, the thing that's important is really around we are a customer first culture. So when you look at the way that we license our product or the way that we build integrations, much to the Bill's point earlier about our partnership with ComeAround, is we see that what we're providing to customers is value, not a product. So the thing is, let's put customers first in everything we do. So we license our product in different ways. You can do it on a subscription. You can do it as a perpetual license. You can use this in a SaaS environment. You can put it in prem on your environment. You can host it in Amazon. You can put the Cherwell product in any place that's important to you. So it's really your choice in what you want to be able to do with it. We do business fairly and honestly. We're a very simple price. We don't license our product in a lot of different ways like some of the other vendors. It's, for the most part, a product that when you license it, it's a come one, come all. You get everything that is Cherwell, especially when it comes to the service management side. And then very importantly, we're very easy to configure and maintain. You don't have to have JavaScript developers. You don't have to have strong development resources. Our tool is very much the right click, drag and drop type configuration. Now that doesn't mean that it can't do complex solutions. Absolutely, we can drive complex solutions and workflow, but it's easy in the development. So, Bill, next slide. So what is the product, right? Here's the quick feature functions, right? We've got 11 out-of-box ITIL processes that we support. Those are your traditional things like incident, problem, change management type scenarios. We use ComAround as a very strong partnership for KCS and Knowledge. And we see, and as we work through some of these other pieces, you'll see that what makes us successful is the ability to use Knowledge to drive down the cost of maintaining IT and IT tickets. We're configuring an IT service portal, so we really look at this as, yes, we're customer first, but we see through you to your end customer as well. So most of what you look at Cherwell and the screen images there are very much a dashboard-driven service catalog functionality that allows your end user to self-support themselves and can also interact with the service catalog to do a lot of different things around service management. Last 2 bullet points are important as well. One-step actions. So there's a lot of things that you can create with Cherwell, and don't think of one step as truly in just taking a single step. It can be a process or a full workflow, but if I want to package all these things together and deliver it in a single step, I can do that easily within Cherwell. So you can build out a full workflow scenario and put it in a button where it's clicked and these things all happen behind it. And then this last bullet point bleeds into my next slide, so you can go ahead and go build to the next slide. We have things that are called mergeable applications. It's things that we build at Cherwell. It's things that you build on your own. It's things that partners build. And these are things that end up in what we call our map exchange or mergeable application exchange. So there's a few listed here. There's hundreds of applications that are out there. And the ability to interact with our map exchange is you're going to download that functionality. You can modify it, you can make changes to it, and you can plug it as if it's a Lego block into or out of your current Cherwell environment. It makes it super easy to add functionality without having to add development resources. Think of it as what we talk about as content. You're adding content to the platform that is Cherwell. And then the last piece that I'll mention here, then I hand it back over to Bill, is on the left-hand side, talks about enterprise service management. Like many vendors today, we really think of our Cherwell platform as a platform that does a great job of delivering IT service management, But as this service management space is matured, we find more and more customers that are looking to provide service management functionality across all departments. So where in the past we never thought of an HR department that would handle an incident, well, it's true. They don't have incidents, they have cases. So in an HR department, they're providing case management. So where in IT it is, I can't print or I need software or a new laptop. In HR, it's things like I can't find my benefits card, or my wife just had a baby and I need to add my baby into my benefits. That service management's just under a different look and feel because it's a different department. Same thing with facilities. I need my desk moved, my wall needs to be painted, the air conditioning is not working. Those are the same things as what IT would deal with, but it's a different department. Where HR calls it cases, facility typically calls it work orders. It's all these different departments in an organization can benefit from a service management platform. So Bill, I'm happy to talk for a long time about Cherwell. I'm sure there may be some questions that relate to that, but this is really around ComeAround. So I'm available after this, right through email or any other way to answer and support you if you got questions around the Cherwell product. Bill, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it. And, you know, again, thanks to Rick and Cherwell for co-sponsoring, and certainly Rick for a great presentation. Just a couple words about ComeAround. Again, as a company, we are very focused around not just knowledge management, and as Matt mentioned, knowledge management for everywhere where there's a support experience. So very similar to Matt's final slide, we're involved not just in ITSM, but we're involved in human resource management, customer support, client engagement, partner management, a lot of different areas where knowledge is a key asset of the corporation. But when you look at what we do at ComAround, again, we've been in business for more than 21 years and focused on knowledge management. But very similar to the Cherwell approach, we believe we're a very easy to use, easy to implement, and easy to maintain knowledge management solution. So many clients that have come to us over time have found our product something that's very simple to implement. And by adhering to the KCS methodology as a product, in that it is a verified KCS knowledge management platform, all of the things that you wish to implement under KCS, you know, are enabled within the software platform itself, so that you won't have to have people fall back to old ways if the software doesn't support it. A lot of these things that you've heard about improve employee productivity, time to proficiency, training time, education time, reducing turnover of your key staff because they feel very challenged by now going to a place where knowledge is being stored, are all very important. And as Rick referred to earlier, what's driving a lot of the return on investment is what is called shift left. And that really, to summarize, is providing the best optimal support experience for the end user at the lowest possible cost. So it's shifting escalations from a level 3 to a level 2 to a level 1 person, and ultimately to a level 0 or self-service experience. And of course, what we do with the mergeable application solution that we've developed with Cherwell is a very strategic alliance that we're very proud to have and have maintained over the years. A little more about ComAround as a company. Again, more than 250 clients across all different industries around the world, multi-language, automatic translation of knowledge articles, a lot of different features, functions, capabilities. But we're very proud of the fact that over 500,000 desktops on agents and end users are providing us a collective consciousness in terms of the kinds of questions that end users are asking as an aggregate, so that we can continue to develop not just the best knowledge product, but also based on our DNA and heritage, produce knowledge articles that are valuable for the kinds of changes that you're rolling out your organization, whether that be moving to Windows 10, adopting a new Office 365 strategy, implementing new versions of software or technology that we may support. And also a lot of that comes from the search results, and in 2017, more than 3 million searches have occurred using our product. We're very proud to be working very closely with some very key clients as we continue to develop our solution and welcoming new clients really every day. We value the Cherwell relationship not just as a partner, but coming soon to a Cherwell web portal near yours is ComeAround for Cherwell customer service as well. And I'll let the folks from Cherwell in the client service organization talk more about that over time. But we're very proud to not only have Cherwell as a partner, but now also as a client of ComeAround. As I mentioned, our DNA started in producing actual book and training education back in the mid-90s. And today for IT support, we deliver the most commonly asked questions by end users, how-tos, video capability, screenshots, and updates of questions people ask around these commercially off-the-shelf software products. They include a broad array of new information about products as they become available, like Windows 10 and Skype, and Teams, and a number of other software solutions. And every ComeAround client is delivered almost 30,000 articles in English and 70,000 articles total in a variety of languages that they can immediately have access to via the Cherwell product or in a standalone environment. What do we do in terms of product-wise? Again, knowledge is our business and our only business. Strategic alliances with the KCS organization, the Consortium for Innovation, in addition to Cherwell, worldwide. But also, we are completely a Microsoft-based platform, and in that regard, we're using products and technology that can be enabled to really provide transformational capabilities for your organization as well. And that includes the latest updates from the digital world, including things like artificial intelligence, bot technology, machine learning, and applying those new technologies to knowledge. As many of the analysts that we've talked to are saying, enabling things like artificial intelligence or bots require a very strong knowledge foundation. And we're experiencing a very, very increased interest in knowledge management as a company, as companies strive to really readjust and reformulate their knowledge strategy. They're looking for proven knowledge creation tools, proven flexibility and expertise in understanding methodologies, a strong technical background, including things like Power BI reporting, Azure Search, a number of other technologies where resources are available on a global basis. But really, on the bottom line, it's all about empowering users, engaging customers and employees better, helping to transform the customer environment and the culture. Many times we do, as Rick mentioned, hire people for what they know, but how can we now sort of incent those people to share information? And knowledge sharing is a very key part of what we focus on as well. And of course, to optimize the various partnerships and technologies that we deal with as a company to ensure that your experience is very seamless when it comes to integration and it comes to working together. To that point, here's a familiar example of a particular service request screen or incident screen, where, as you can see, within the Cherwell product itself, ComeAround becomes a very seamless, integrated part of the experience for the agent as well as for the end user, so that knowledge becomes an integrated, mergeable application within the Cherwell environment that provides clients the optimum experience for those that are wishing to fully implement KCS or just key components of KCS. ComeAround is there not just as a product, but also for all the other things that we provide as well. So a quick thank you again from the sponsors. Thanks to the folks at Cherwell and Matt and his team for really endorsing and pushing this webinar today. Kudos to Jenny for being our moderator. And thanks to all of our clients that are on the phone today and all of you that have shown an interest in understanding more about how to make KCS and ITIL work together for the benefit of your company. I will open up the floor real quickly, Jenny, to any questions that have come in. I see a couple of questions here as well that I can certainly put forward if you have some that you have, or I can put a couple forward to Rick and to Matt.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and put the ones forward that you have, that would be great.
Yeah, Matt, I have one here that's sort of targeted for you, and that is sort of from an IT support point of view, sort of where do you and Cherwell see the market going, and the kinds of things that Cherwell is doing to address some of the key initiatives that the market is telling you are important for the next coming years.
Good question. Boy, I could talk a long time about different avenues down that path. Let me stick to the knowledge aspect of this, and I think it plays so closely into what we're doing today with this webinar. Clearly, knowledge is a differentiator in the ability to solve problems, reduce resolution time, increase customer satisfaction. So part of the reason why we're joint sponsors with this webinar today, and all the things that we do together beyond just even this webinar with ComeAround, is we see knowledge as one of the big factors that an IT organization can use to drive forward customer satisfaction. So if you look at what we see through the rest of this year, early next year, it's that adoption of doing things that make the end user more capable of being satisfied, and that's usually through experience. ComeAround helps us clearly increase that customer and end user experience scenario. So, Bill, does that answer that, or do you think I need to go into more detail?
No, that's good, Matt. And here's one for Rick. Like ITIL, how do we implement, do we have to implement fully KCS principles and techniques, or are there parts that we can use immediately and maybe evolve over time?
Yeah, just like any framework or methodology out there, you learn from the framework and the methodology and then adopt it to your strategy. KCS, though, is more of a methodology and not a framework, which means there is some things that are more prescriptive, which helps us identify ditches and things that can cause us problems. So it's important to learn about all of it. As far as getting started, though, you can absolutely get starting by creating a knowledge sharing culture, and implementing pieces of KCS really is about getting people to share their knowledge with each other and realizing you can capture and use that knowledge in the support processes on every call. Don't make it an optional resource, but look at actually how you integrate that so that you can capture the reuse data and you can start actually decreasing that redundancy that's going on in your environment.
That's great. Here's another one. How do you get people to work across the various IT departments to establish sort of a mindset of sharing, it sounds like, and incentives? And Rick, maybe, you know, sort of some of the gamification things and things that you've seen, maybe that's a good segue.
Yeah, you know, knowledge management isn't really about technology. Technology is the enabler. The biggest, I think the answer to your question comes back to something known as organizational change management, and that is changing people's behavior and helping people understand the value. Just as when incident management came out, and I referred to it earlier in the presentation, that we didn't log every call, nor did we want to record the answer to everything. It took us time to understand the value, and once we explained to people the value of why we log every call and why we record answers, it became a best practice and now a common practice. We need to do the same thing with knowledge management. We need to educate the support staff and our support partners about the value of their sharing knowledge on a regular basis and improving knowledge as they see issues. So a lot of it's going to come back to education, sharing, and demonstration of success, sharing stories from other companies. So getting people to change their behavior is really about education and selling them in the value of the processes itself.
Yeah, and I'll take that on as well from a longtime knowledge management proponent here at ComeAround and in the industry. Many times, you know, you go into an endeavor like a knowledge management solution, and you really have to focus on marketing that effort as well. Like most projects, you need support of senior leadership to promote the knowledge sharing culture that could evolve from a project like this. But also you have, every company has that person with a long line outside of their cubicle. They're the industry expert. People line up to ask questions. They complain about not being able to do their work, but secretly go home smiling at night that they have a tremendous value to the company. So how do you get back to encouraging that person to share information and recognize them for successful sharing of information? And I think that's the key. So incorporated within a product like ComeAround as an example, we offer capabilities to reward the agents with the most articles that are shared or given a positive rating. You can have internal contests between IT departments on how many calls they were able to reduce through the self-service shift left initiatives, or how many calls are not being escalated anymore. We have some companies that have contests between departments where they need to wash cars for their colleagues based on a winning score. So there's lots of things you can do to make it fun, to make people work together. But creating that culture is certainly something that involves executive support, good marketing and support, and rewarding new behaviors like knowledge sharing, like knowledge collaboration between departments, workflows that automatically track the amount of time it takes for a knowledge article to move through the cycle to be published. Those kinds of things are very important in establishing as part of the technology initiative, and to Rick's point, to really establish the process.
You know, and I'd like to add to what you just shared, Bill. You know, one of the key things you've talked about here is it's moving the value model. It's moving from the value of the people who know the most to the value of the people who share the most. And that's really what part of that culture has to shift, is we need to have a reputation model and recognize the people who are sharing and using knowledge, so that they're encouraged and rewarded by the fact that they're helping their peers. So it's up to the organization to change that value model. Well, don't just value the people who know a lot, value the people who help others and share a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. And here's another one. We're thinking about enabling new technologies such as chat, bots, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. How does knowledge play into helping us achieve success in those initiatives? Well, you know, a friend of mine from Microsoft said recently that these new technologies like artificial intelligence and bots enable CIOs to make bigger mistakes with more confidence than ever before. I found that not just humorous, but also very telling in terms of what analysts and other folks are saying to us, which is that in many cases, artificial intelligence initiatives particularly will fail without having real intelligence. Now, for those on the phone and maybe my fellow presenters, that sounds like a very logical conclusion. And I think organizations like Gartner and DMG and other major consulting and analyst firms are now seeing that these initiatives will certainly fail unless customers really step up and start giving these tools the ability to find information that is, number one, accurate, number two, accessible, and number three, can be tracked in terms of relevance on who's looking for information, so that the AI tools can effectively measure what the activity levels are of the users. And in this case, the users being either employees or customers searching a website, or people going to Facebook or LinkedIn to look for information about your products and services. So it's a combination of knowledge, social media, what KCS Academy calls intelligence swarming. So there's a lot of information out there that can be used to turn into knowledge. When it comes to chat technology and bots, also, if you're thinking about deploying those kinds of solutions, you know, you need to expose a bot, as an example, to an intelligent stream of consciousness that understands not just who the user is, but the kinds of questions that that user is asking, so that eventually you can lead them to what Rick was mentioning earlier, which is really the service objective of leading them to the right information at the right time, answering the right question. And bots are very similar to that. When it comes to chat, many organizations are exploring chat internally as well as externally, certainly. But if you don't have good resolution time, if someone is talking directly to one of your agents, exposing that lack of information multiple times over a chat session clearly shows the end users that you don't have an answer readily available. So that's driving, again, more increase in customers' focus on knowledge management in that area. And Rick or Matt, you've seen a lot in the marketplace, and we all hear every day customers talking about digital transformation. Is there anything you'd like to add on that subject regarding both the ITSM area as well as maybe ITIL and what's happening in?
So digital transformation is, obviously moving things to the ability to find knowledge quickly. When we talk about it related to knowledge management, you reference bots. Bots are about listening to people in whether audio or in text, and converting that into a search string and finding it against a strong knowledge base, interpreting that knowledge base, and sending it back. So what bots are replacing those people in the middle of being able to listen and interpret and search. But without that knowledge foundation, you're not going to have a successful bot. As we move into digital transformation, it's about making information available as quickly as possible, and that right information. So it still always comes down to, if you don't have that foundation of knowledge, you're not going to be able to do it.
Matt, any comment on your side regarding, sort of robotic process automation or bots or things that you're hearing from your clients and the kinds of things that Cherwell is stepping up with?
No, definitely something that we've got strong consideration. You'll see some offerings, I think, potentially that we'll have throughout this year. But what we find along the lines of what's already been said is the success of any RPA is around the maturity of an IT organization. These are not plug and play functionality, right? There's a lot to it to make it successful, given the technology state that we are today. So lots of conversations, but many of those haven't led to something tangible yet. If that makes sense.
Well, I think I don't see any other. Jenny, do you see any other questions that are out there?
No, I don't see any more at the moment.
Don't be bashful, folks. I see one more here, Jenny. Can ComeAround be used with most incident management tools outside of Cherwell? And the answer there is, being a knowledge-only company, we have a very robust stream of APIs that are available to the marketplace to integrate with virtually any kind of system. So you can see our knowledge management system being integrated to Salesforce.com when it comes to case management for customer service. We have a very strong relationship with Microsoft for their Dynamics CRM product, where we formed as the knowledge management capability for Dynamics clients that wish to add self-service capabilities and self-service use among their client base or their partner network. We also see a lot of integration with bug tracking systems like Jira, community products like Telligent, Jive, and some of the others that are out there. And also open APIs to organizations outside of Cherwell, such as ServiceNow, where clients have a variety of tools where they're either implementing a ServiceNow system or they have multiple ITSM systems where they may have Cherwell in the United States and ServiceNow in Belgium, where one instance of ComAround can provide a unified knowledge base to support a variety of case management and ticketing and incident management systems. So the answer to that is yes. By our nature, we have to provide software that's agnostic through APIs. And really, it's subject to the specific customer needs, the diversity of that customer. So hopefully that answers the question there for the folks there. Well, I think we're sort of at the end of the questions here. And again, what I'd like to do is to thank all of you for today's attendance. I want to thank our presenters, Matt Peeples for representing Cherwell again, Jenny for your help in moderating, and most of all, Rick Joslin for an excellent presentation on how ITIL and KCS specifically can come together to produce a remarkable service experience and help you get the most out of your Cherwell system. So on behalf of ComeAround, thank everyone, and have a great holiday weekend. And thanks again for joining us. Keep track of more webinars coming out from ComAround. We'll be having another one specifically on bot and AI technology and knowledge coming up in the month of April. So stay tuned, and look forward to seeing you on the next presentation.